I never expected a 5-minute act of kindness to change my life. It was almost midnight when I saw a young woman stumbling alone beside a nearly empty parking lot. She was clearly drunk, barely able to stand, and her phone had fallen from her hand twice. I could have driven past her. I could have told myself it wasn't my problem. But something inside me said, "Don't leave her here." So I stopped. I had no idea that when I reached her home and knocked on the door, the woman who opened it would be the last person I expected to see. My boss. Before we get into this emotional story, make sure you subscribe to Kindness Story, hit the like button, and leave a comment telling us what you would have done if you were in my situation. Your support helps us bring more stories about kindness, hope, and the little choices that can change someone's life. It had been a long Friday at work. I was 32 years old and worked as a junior project manager at a large marketing company in Chicago. My job was stressful, but I was grateful for it. I wasn't rich, and I didn't have a fancy car or a perfect life. I was simply trying to pay my bills, help my younger brother with college, and build a better future. My boss, Elizabeth Carter, was one of the most respected people in the company. She was smart, demanding, and incredibly successful. Everyone knew she expected the best from her employees. She rarely smiled during meetings, and nobody wanted to be the person who walked into her office without being prepared. To me, she was simply my boss. That Friday night, I stayed late finishing a presentation. By the time I left the office, it was almost midnight. I was driving home when I noticed a young woman standing near a closed gas station. At first, I thought she was waiting for an Uber. Then I saw her stumble. She tried to unlock her phone but dropped it on the sidewalk. She picked it up and stared at the screen as if she couldn't understand what she was seeing. I pulled over. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked from a safe distance. She looked at me with watery eyes. "I'm fine," she said. She clearly wasn't. "Where are you trying to go?" She gave me an address, but when I asked her to repeat it, she couldn't remember the street name. I noticed the smell of alcohol immediately. She had obviously been drinking far too much. I didn't want to put her in my car without knowing anything about her, but I also couldn't leave her alone on a dark street. "Do you have someone I can call?" I asked. She stared at her phone. "My mom." "Okay. Let's call your mom." She suddenly started crying. "I can't call her. She's going to be so angry." I understood that fear. Maybe she had made a terrible mistake. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she thought admitting she needed help would make everything worse. But leaving her there could make everything much worse. So I called a rideshare, but the driver canceled when he arrived and saw how intoxicated she was. That left me with one choice. I called her mother. The young woman gave me the number, and I explained that her daughter was safe but had been drinking and couldn't get home alone. Her mother didn't ask many questions. She simply gave me an address. "Please bring her home," she said. There was something in her voice that made me realize she wasn't angry. She was scared. I helped the young woman into my car and drove carefully through the quiet streets. She was silent for several minutes. Then she whispered, "You don't even know me. Why are you helping me?" I looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Because someone should." She started crying again. "My mom is going to hate me." "No," I said. "She might be disappointed, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you." After a few minutes, she fell asleep. When we arrived, I helped her to the front door. I rang the bell and stepped back. A few seconds later, the door opened. And my heart nearly stopped. Elizabeth Carter was standing there. My boss. She was wearing sweatpants and an old sweatshirt, and her hair was pulled back. She looked nothing like the powerful executive I saw every morning at work. She looked like a terrified mother. Her eyes immediately went to the young woman beside me. "Emily," She rushed forward. "Mom," the girl whispered. Elizabeth wrapped her arms around her daughter. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Elizabeth looked at me. Her expression changed instantly. "You?" I nodded awkwardly. "I found Emily outside a gas station. She was alone and couldn't get home safely." Elizabeth stared at me. Then she looked at her daughter. Then back at me. "Thank you," she whispered. "Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head. "No. They wouldn't." I told her Emily hadn't driven and that I had made sure she got home safely. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "My husband died 3 years ago," she said quietly. "Since then, I've tried to be both parents to her. I thought I was doing everything right." Emily looked down. "Mom, I'm sorry." Elizabeth hugged her again. "You scared me. That's all." I started walking toward my car. Then Elizabeth called after me. "Wait." I turned around. She walked toward me. "On Monday, don't expect special treatment because you helped my daughter." I smiled. "I wouldn't." She smiled for the first time. "But don't expect me to forget it either." I laughed softly. Deal. Monday morning was different. When I walked into the office, I felt nervous. I wondered if Elizabeth would treat me differently. She didn't. She was still demanding. She still corrected my presentation. She still asked difficult questions during the meeting. But near the end of the day, she stopped me outside her office. "My daughter told me something," she said. "What?" "She said you didn't judge her." I didn't know what to say. Elizabeth looked at me seriously. "She said you could have called the police. You could have left her there. You could have treated her like she was stupid or irresponsible. Instead, you treated her like a human being who needed help." I looked down. "I just didn't want anything bad to happen to her." Elizabeth nodded. "That is exactly what kindness is." A few weeks later, I received a message from Emily. She told me she had started counseling and had stopped drinking. She also said something I never forgot. "You helped me on the worst night of my life without asking for anything in return. I want to become the kind of person who does that for someone else." I stared at that message for a long time. Because that's the strange thing about kindness. You never really know where it will go. Maybe it's giving someone a ride home. Maybe it's buying coffee for a stranger. Maybe it's listening when someone needs to talk. Maybe it's simply refusing to judge someone during the worst moment of their life. We often think kindness has to be something huge. It doesn't. Sometimes kindness is just stopping when everyone else keeps driving. Sometimes it's making the phone call someone is too afraid to make. Sometimes it's reminding someone that one terrible night doesn't have to become their entire story. I never expected to find my boss standing behind that door. I never expected to meet Emily. And I certainly never expected one small decision on a Friday night to remind me how powerful kindness can be. So the next time you see someone struggling, remember this story. You may never know what they're going through. You may never know what happened before you arrived. And you may never know how much your small act of kindness means to them. But you can still choose to help. Because sometimes, the smallest kindness becomes the biggest turning point in someone's life. And sometimes, when you help someone find their way home, you discover something about your own heart too. So be kind. Not because someone is watching. Not because you expect something in return. Be kind because everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see. And one day, your simple act of kindness might be the reason someone believes in humanity again.